Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Billion Dollar Banker podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Perrone, and today I'm so excited to have with me Eric Morrell, criminal defense attorney in New Jersey, a fighter, not a handshaker. I love that quote. You'll never forget him. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Nicole. Looking forward to this interview and podcast discussion.
It's been a while. Yeah, we were catching up before we got started, and your kids are like fully grown now. At least your son's now 18. We're talking about all of his success, and it's been a long time since we've gotten together, and here we are. Excited to have you.
Nice.
So tell us a bit about your background and what led you to specialize in criminal defense law.
So I started as a young lawyer in a Middlesex County law practice, and the person I worked for at the time, he had about 50 murder trials under his belt, and wow. I said I could do this, and I worked for him. I got about 6 jury trials working there, full jury trials. I was probably 27 years old. And that's how I started. And,
wow.
And eventually I went on my own.
And so how about where are you located in New Jersey?
So my office is in New Brunswick, in downtown New Brunswick.
I should say areas you cover. I'm sorry.
Right. And I also represent people in Middlesex County, Monmouth County, Union County, Somerset County. So I cover all those counties in criminal defense.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. And so what inspired you to start EBM Law, to be a part of that, and to, you know, how long has it been actually that you've been in your firm and operating as a criminal defense attorney?
So I left the person that mentored me back in 1999, and I said I could do this on my own, and that's basically what I did. Is I left his office, and it's been about 25 years later, and I've been doing it on my own ever since.
That's great. That's awesome. Could you give us kind of an overview of what EBM Law and what you do specifically and the types of cases that you handle?
Sure. So I represent people charged with criminal offenses, whether it be a serious criminal offense or not so serious criminal offense. I also do work in the federal court system too, but most of my day-to-day work is in state courts in the criminal system.
Okay. And what do you think sets apart your firm from others?
So I show a lot of compassion for my clients, and my goal is to make people, when they come to me, they have a lot of issues, whether it be mental illness, whether it be drug addiction, whether it be an alcohol problem. And I explain to them that you came to me and you're now charged with a crime. I want you to get better in your area and do what you need to do, whether I send them to a professional, whether they seek a professional that they know. And then my goal is to get them better, to a better place after they leave my law office.
That's a big responsibility.
I try very hard.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I remember when we first met, you always had we were in a B&I group together. Shout out to the B&I Hawks. Nice. We're going to have to do that. Nice. And, you know, just hearing the a little bit about the cases that you covered, it's just it's definitely a difficult job. It's not an easy one.
It's challenging.
Yeah. So tell us about what some of those cases look like. What are the most common cases that you handle?
So basically, I represent people charged with sex offenses, drug offenses, gun cases. So that's basically, you know, anything you think somebody would be charged with in a criminal arena. I also represent a lot of Rutgers students. They're charged with, you know, my office is where New Brunswick is, so I represent a lot of Rutgers students. I have a good familiarity with representing them and the different things that they get charged with. And I've recently been involved in some Title IX cases at Rutgers. Those are the different areas that I handle. Got it.
And so, you know, DUIs, drugs, other crimes, it could be white collar or beyond. Is there any, I mean, those are really interesting. Like how long does the average case usually take for you? I know this is kind of off the cuff, but like when I think about what you're doing, I'm like, wow, you have a lot of things going at one time. Does it take a long time to settle a lot of these cases for your clients?
So some cases, of course, will take longer because they're more intricate. The discovery is more involved. Now with body-worn cameras, it takes longer time to review and receive body-worn cameras, things of that nature. But, you know, in some cases take less time. It matters the severity. It matters maybe sometimes it even matters, you know, whether a witness is available or whether a witness is not available. Sometimes clients are in rehab programs or getting treated. You want to, before you resolve a case, you want them to be treated and fully the best they could be before you resolve a case. So there's all different.
There's a lot of like discovery process, basically, where you have to collect all this information and figure out how to build your case, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what happens after you get started, right? And somebody's already come to you and then you're kind of moving along the process. But how does it start? Can you walk us through the beginning? I mean, there might be someone out there today that just recently got in trouble. Like what are the next steps and how does the consultation process work for you?
Okay, that's actually a great question.
Hmm.
And I pride myself in handling clients, with deft and with empathy. And
Hmm.
when they come into the office, usually the phone call's made, and my staff will speak with them first and get them basic information,
Hmm.
and then we'll go on what's called e-courts, which is a program that the courts use,
Hmm.
where you could kind of see what the charges are, where they are in the process in the case, what judge, what prosecutor is handling it,
Okay.
and you get a feel for what's happening in the case. And then I sit down with them
Hmm.
and we get a lot of information about what exactly happened. And the next step would be, of course, to get the police reports and whatever reports and video, which is a lot more common these days
Yeah.
because all the police wear body-worn cameras. And we review
Hmm.
it and then bring them in and we discuss it.
When you take it from there. Yeah, I'm just thinking as you're talking about video and just the process of using technology, is AI starting to evolve at all inside of the practice of law or helping to expedite any of this for
So
you
in
guys?
criminal work, there really isn't much AI, but technology is definitely more advanced. People now record each other all the time,
Hmm.
and cameras are used much more frequently.
Hmm.
And police departments provide us with, body worn cameras, so we have a lot more information, and it makes
Okay.
it easier to practice criminal law.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine there was a day where there was no video evidence to utilize or back up your arguments. It must have been even more difficult to defend somebody. So,
Yeah. So when I was a young lawyer, I had a jury trial,
hmm.
and the police went into a home and they indicated there must have been like maybe 7 to 10 police, and they all said where they found individual drugs.
Hmm.
So on my cross examination in 1999, I said, you guys couldn't have brought a portable camera. No one had cell phones then, but nobody
Hmm.
actually even took a picture of where the drugs were found.
Oh, wow.
So now there's much more pictures being taken and much
Hmm.
more video, and people have
Evidence.
private video that we could use. I mean, I had that case where I mentioned to you where we got the video from the search
Yeah.
outside from a separate building and used that in defense of my client.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about that case but and maybe you could cover it here. I was curious about what some of the key challenges are that you're facing when you do prepare a defense for your clients. What are some of the challenges that you come across throughout that process?
Well, some of the challenges are you don't know exactly what the prosecutor's office knows as you're defending the client. You really don't know what the state has,
Hmm.
and you have to anticipate what's going to be coming. And then, of course, sometimes your clients are not being truthful with you, so you have to figure that
Hmm.
out too. And at the same time, you're also trying to get them better.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of different interplays going on in the process.
You're trying to get them a better outcome, and
Right.
do most. And I'm thinking of some of these questions on the fly here, but do most of cases do they get settled, or do they go to full trial?
Most cases you get resolutions,
Okay.
whether a plea, a dismissal. There's diversions in New Jersey where a client the case could be resolved by a diversion,
Okay.
which means that they won't have a criminal record and they're in a program for a year, usually unsupervised
Okay.
probation. There are some cases, of course, that go to trial, but most
Right.
get resolved.
That's good. Well, when you work with Eric, then they probably get resolved great. How do you build trust and maintain communication with your clients through the case?
So I'm very conscientious of where they are in their lives
Hmm.
when they come to the office. And I make sure my staff has a good comfort level with them. And we're very communicative during the case,
Right.
which I think is very important. And yeah, that's how you build trust. And they see that you're fighting for them. A lot of times, sometimes you fight for them and they don't see it. But when they see it
Mm.
and you're in the courtroom and they realize the way you handle it, they then have a lot more confidence. A lot of times also they've come to you where they've been told that you've done a good job for somebody else, so they then know that you're going to do a good job for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would imagine, a lot of your customers must come from past clients that, have been satisfied with what you've done to help them. So that says a lot. And so, what advice would you give to clients who are facing criminal charges for the first time?
So, of course, if you're pulled over or if there's a search warrant,
Mm-hmm.
do not give a statement. If you're pulled over, if you want to talk about it like that, just be peaceful with the police officer. Don't answer questions, but be peaceful and respectful. And if there's a search warrant and the police are in your home and they then say, we want to give a statement, would you like to give a statement? I would say, no, I'd like to assert my rights and I'd like to have a lawyer, and then they will not question you. But that's my suggestion.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one, because I think people don't know, if you're out there and you have a situation and you're running across it, I think it's good to have some set of legal guidance that you know how to act and how to operate. And obviously being respectful is a big one. And, we've spoke about very, very kind of broad overview about some of your cases, but I'm curious, are there any notable or particularly challenging cases that you've worked on that you can share with us?
So I had a murder case a few years ago, one of my earlier, experience as a lawyer, and the person that was charged with the crime, his brother, who was not charged with the crime, was feeding me a lot of information. And I remember that the information was information that I was acting on to represent the client. And then I went up to the jail, at one of the county jails, and he was speaking to a co-defendant. And I was very surprised, and I realized that he had no relation to the co-defendant. And I then knew that this was a problem, and I then got off the case. I filed a motion to be relieved of counsel because I knew that no one was being honest with me.
Does that happen often in your profession, where you have to, because I'm sure you have to assess the level of honesty that you're building that relationship with your client?
Well, something that I do is when they come into the office, I have a strong personality, and I kind of convey to them that the information they tell me is very important because it's going to help them in their defense. So I always say, this is the time to be honest. This is the time to be sincere. Don't tell me small amount of information and then hope later it's going to help you. You got to tell me everything up front so I understand, so I could prepare a defense and I could appropriately represent you in court.
Right. Now that makes sense. If you can't be honest with your attorney, who are you going to be honest with, honestly, when you're in an issue like that? So be honest with your attorney.
Always honesty to the lawyer. Always.
Yeah. And so now, are there any cases that you could think of that had a really favorable outcome that you can share with us?
So I recently had a great result on a case. A client, I was actually on spring break, and the client had a different lawyer, wasn't happy, and called me on spring break. I was with my family, and I said, I can handle this. And I figured out exactly what went on. For some reason, there was a search warrant from a different county, and then it went to another county. And I realized it went to another county later because the amount of evidence that they found was not enough for that county to take the case, and it ended up going to a different county. So once it went to that county, I was able to fight on the case. That county ended up getting a warrant for my client's home, and evidence was seized. However, I was able to fight, and we were able to get some of the money that was seized back. We fought the DEA. We got a great result, and then the prosecutor's office and I were able to get some of the money returned, and we got a great result on the case.
Wow!
So that was a good example of
good thing you answered your phone for that client on spring break. Were you
Yes.
anywhere fun?
I was in South Florida with my family, and
Very cool.
The case turned out so great that after we got the resolution, the client actually bought me a watch as a gift.
Love it.
It's really nice.
That is really nice. That's when you know you've done a great job, when your client gets you a gift.
I thought it was great. I'm actually wearing the watch today.
Shout out to that client if you're watching.
They're very appreciative.
Who knows? Oh, that's great. So tell us, any trends or changes that are in the criminal law arena that's impacting your field?
Right. So marijuana, of course, is now legal, and there's a lot of issues in regard to marijuana. Some counties are still using dogs that are trained in marijuana to search cars. That's definitely an issue and an area that, is a concern, and the courts have recognized that. Marijuana being legal, the police have a lot less opportunity to search vehicles because the smell of marijuana is not a reason to search. So it makes it harder for the police in that sense. So I see the marijuana issue as a change in our system. Also recently, DWI laws have been changed in New Jersey. There's something called Guideline 4. It was removed. And because Guideline 4 was removed, now prosecutors' offices prosecutors in municipal, in towns in New Jersey, they have more leeway to negotiate DWI cases, because it used to be that you weren't allowed to plea bargain a DWI, and now they are. So that's another area of the law that's been changing, and I'm pretty, cognizant of that, and I'm involved in DWI defense work, and I do a lot of continuing education for DWI work, and I'm a member of a special DWI group with lawyers throughout the state, so I'm familiar with that area also.
Oh, that's great. I was going to ask, who are you educating the public, or who do you educate on those changes?
So I go to seminars,
okay,
but of course I've monitored seminars and proctored seminars over the years.
And this is a perfect for lead on question here. I was going to ask, how do you stay up to date with all of the changes that are going on? Obviously, you just listed a few ways, but any other avenues or resources, communities that you use?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So for DWI work, I'm in a special group that we meet throughout the state, and we discuss all the changes and updates, and we actually have lectures and seminars about all the changes in the law and all those things. But I, read all the local updates to all the courts and the lawyers. We refer, we send each other the cases as the cases go on. And we also go to continuing education classes. And I, of course, always attend for criminal law and all the areas that affect my practice.
That's great. Yeah, because so much is always changing. I always say in my business and the mortgage industry, it's like you could have been doing this for 20 years, but if you're not on top of the things that are changing consistently, it's almost like you're brand new. So you're always learning.
Yeah. And not only you're always learning, but then when I get the new information, I'll put a nice blog article.
Okay.
I'll have my staff put together an article with the new information, and then I'll interpret it and see how it affects our clients and put that on my website. And we do that pretty regularly. So
that's great. And we're going to have all of Eric's information below, so you can follow him on social, on YouTube, and on X. I know you're pretty active on social media.
Yeah.
So that's great. And so,
Thanks.
I think about the audience, and hopefully they're not all criminals, but for you, I mean, you'd probably be excited if they were. But how about for people that are aspiring to become an attorney? I mean, you've built an amazing practice. Over 20 years, you've been working within your practice, and so you're more than an attorney, right? You run a business. But what advice would you give for people that are interested in becoming an attorney?
So what's important is to have analytical skills. So when you go to law school, you're going to learn how to analyze things, because you're always reviewing discovery and police reports. You're looking for defenses. You're looking for, places where you could help your client, basically. You want to be a good writer. You want to have some good writing skills, be good at persuasive writing. So if you're in college, you want to take a persuasive writing class. In law school, try to get your writing better. And you want to have confidence, because you want to portray the information that you are putting out there with confidence, and you also want to be empathetic. I mean, you can't learn empathy, but you want to have empathy, and you want to show the court staff and the judge and the prosecutor, how you feel about the client, and you want to portray that. So empathy is really good.
That's interesting that you said the persuasive writing class. Did you take classes like that in college as well that helped you articulate your position well in these cases?
So in college, I went to UMass, and I had a good writing class, and we were taught how to persuasive write. And then, of course, in law school, you learn how to write legally and how to craft your arguments better. And there's a lot of writing, a lot more writing than people think or know. Everyone just sees the people going to court and sees it on the screen, but there's writing involved.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of times I have my Rutgers, I have Rutgers paralegals. They work for me. I've had them for many years, and they are involved in the writing process too, which helps. Yeah.
And then reading's also got to be a huge component of it as well, right? With all the discovery and
yes, a lot of reading. I have my cheater glasses now because of years of reading. And it helps. And yes, a lot of reading and a lot of watching videos and reviewing discovery. And yeah, definitely.
Would you, we covered some of the qualities that you think someone needs to possess to be a great attorney, but how about to run a practice? I mean, you're so great at marketing your business and to getting involved in different communities that end up knowing who you are, how to refer you. What would you say to someone that's maybe, looking to go out on their own and branch out?
So if you're going out on your own, of course, you have to be out there. You have to be involved in your community. You have to, I always suggest, just being good to people, because people will give business to who they know, like, and trust. and they're going to want to give business to people that they feel comfortable with. So, of course, when you're out there, you want to portray how you are, and people will give business to people who they see doing the same activities that they do, or that they see are good, family men. As I have pride that I'm a good father and a good husband. And I think that helps in practicing law or building up a business.
Yeah.
I'm involved in my community. All those things are important.
It showcases, and social media is like the greatest way to be able to do that too, because you might not see these people every day, but you have the ability to take a picture of something you did within the community, or showcase your involvement with your family and the things that your hobbies, your interests. So it's a great way to let people get to know you a little bit. So, and as I think about what you do, I'm curious, like, what's the most rewarding part of being a criminal defense attorney?
Okay, so when somebody comes to you and they're charged with crimes, usually they're probably guilty of some of the charges, but there's those charges that are above and beyond that they're really not guilty of. And the best result is when you can get somebody out of the charges that they're really not responsible for. I'd say that's pretty rewarding.
Okay, yeah.
And sometimes when clients, after you get a result, like I went to court the other day,
right,
and I got a phenomenal result for a client, and he walked out of the court and he started crying.
Aww.
Because I think he realized what I did for him, and he realized what he avoided. And there were some good defenses in the case, but he was appreciative, and I felt it, and he felt it. I actually drove him home because he was so, emotional about it. I drove him home, and it was, it was nice to see that. And, that's why you work hard for people, is to get the best result you can, and you want to get them to a better place.
That's amazing. And I think I feel that from you, like, genuinely. And, as you talk about emotions, I start to think about you and your emotions. Like, how do you manage the stress of, for these people, this is like incredible. Probably the first time they're going through something like this, it is extremely emotional for them. How are you managing it for yourself?
So I tell people when they come to the office, look, you get better on your own. And now the stress that you have for the case, I'll handle that. So that becomes what I do. But how I unwind is I bike ride. I'm involved volunteering. I mentioned to you that I do that podcast, or it's really like we have like once a week, we through the Edison Chamber of Commerce. It's like people that have suffered from addiction. We have a panel, and we get on and we talk to people. We tell them updates and changes in the law, things that they could use. Sometimes nice. Politicians are on, things like that. So I do that, but I'm involved in my community, and that's kind of how I alleviate the stress.
That's great. Yeah, I was asking you before, are you reading like criminal law books and watching these crazy shows that are on? There's all these podcasts too, criminal podcasts, and people love it. They love hearing these stories.
They do.
But
I don't.
You decompress.
Yeah, I decompress. I come home. I spend time with my children. Spend time with my wife. I go do an activity with them.
That's great.
After this, I'm going to probably go down to Asbury Park and go see the Bruce Springsteen. There's a new exhibit at Convention Hall.
Oh, is there?
I'm going to go check it out.
Nice. We'll be going to oh my gosh, Sublime in Rome's coming in
nice.
August. Yeah, so we're excited. So that'll be my first show at the Pony in a long time.
That's cool.
That's which is bad to say, being that I'm so close to Asbury Park. When you think about like the community outreach that you're doing, obviously it's important to you personally, but let's say for other attorneys that are out there, or for other professionals, like how important do you really think that is in your practice and your success in your business?
So I think it's important to give back, and you want to be able to share the information that you have with people to help them get better. It's not all about business. It's not all about defending clients, but it's also about trying to get people better. There's people that have issues, whether it be autism, whether it be drug addiction, whether it be mental illness, and I think it's good to be out there and try to help.
Yeah, I think and that goes for all business professionals, right? It's one of those things that whether you're a lawyer, even a doctor, financial advisor, whatever what we're doing for a living, realtors and mortgage brokers and bankers, it's like you have to be involved. You have to be out there in multiple ways. I was saying the other day, like every time there's another marketing platform that comes out, it's not like the other one goes away, right? Like networking face to face is still important. Volunteering, community outreach is still important. so is social media, and so is email marketing. And so it's like every new medium that comes out, it just kind of adds to the list of things that you have to do. But you've been actively involved in social media for a very long time. What are some things that people can find from you on your X account or on your Instagram? Is it tell us about kind of what your image is and what you're putting out there for the community?
Okay, that's a good question. So, basically, if you went to my website, you would see some really interesting blogs, things that I mentioned here today, and how it could affect my clients and some of the new topics and new things that have come up in New Jersey law. So it's under the blog. That I feel, that's like more my academic.
Yes.
And that's my social media academic. And then, of course, I have Instagram, which I'm proud of, and I put myself out there and the activities that I do, whether it be with the law practice, whether it be with my family, and I'm proud of that, and I like to be out there. So I do that. I also have some reels about some of the cases I've handled, and the results, things like that.
Yeah, you have some clickbait on that Instagram. the part 1, part 2. So if you watch a reel, you're gonna keep searching. Like you definitely have some good stuff on there.
Thanks.
How about any upcoming projects or initiatives for EBM Law?
So I'm actually in the process right now of so I was pretty involved in my fraternity. I was in a fraternity, Sigma Alpha Mu, which I was at UMass. I was actually the vice president of the Interfraternity Council. So for years I've been involved in fraternities and fraternity and sorority life. And I was an advisor for the Rutgers Sigma Alpha Mu for many years because Rutgers is here. So recently, I was approached by some other school in New Jersey, and they have a local chapter, and the local chapter, it's been around since 1965, and they want to become national. And so I'm becoming a consultant to try to help this local chapter become a Sigma Alpha Mu chapter.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so they're sending people from national Sigma Alpha Mu to speak, and we're going to try to make this work. Hopefully it works and it makes it a good synergy for both. So I'm doing that.
Oh, that's
now.
awesome.
So that's a project. Yeah.
You're still involved. And are you still involved with your UMass fraternity? Or they're getting in trouble in Massachusetts, so they don't, or for wherever they came from, they're not.
So fraternities are, definitely having difficulty, but I think a fraternity is a great, opportunity. It's a great way to make a college campus small. Same thing with a sorority. I still think they have a lot of good things. I was involved in fraternities and sororities basically my whole life, and I'm looking forward to trying to get this local chapter from 1965 become a national chapter of Sigma Alpha Mu. So it's something
super exciting.
Project.
I love that. How about future goals for EBM Law? What's ahead other than this? I mean, what's next?
So I employ Rutgers students. That's something I'm proud of because my law practice is in New Brunswick. So I've had a lot of Rutgers students work for me. I'm actually interviewing in the next couple of weeks. Actually, next week we have a good pool of people that are coming that have expressed interest.
That's great.
I would like to expand the practice. As time goes on, I will figure out certain ways to expand. It's difficult to expand the law practice, but right now I'm hiring Rutgers students to work for me and to help expand and to assist me in the areas of the law that we're doing. I have an involved federal case that I'm working on right now. I have another involved sex case that we're trying to resolve. So those are things, eventually I'd like to expand. But right now, the Rutgers students are helping me.
Yeah. And see, like we said before, it's like, and that's great how involved you are, but scaling a business, marketing a business, these are all things that attorneys have to do on top of knowing the law and defending their clients. And so it's just interesting. There's a lot of young attorneys out there that might want to work for EBM Law one day. So maybe they'll reach out to you.
You're welcome to reach out. We could talk. We could see if we make a fit. But
I'd work for you if I was a criminal defense attorney. Who knows? Is there a way aren't there some states that allow you to intern in order to skip law school or something? Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah. So I think California time had that where you could.
Is that what Kim Kardashian did?
It could be what she's been trying to do. I still think she didn't pass the bar exam because if she did, we would have heard. But she did do some work in law firms. I know she went to law school, and I think there is some type of a program. I think it's still in California. I could be wrong, but there are some states where you could work at a firm and then you become a lawyer.
That's interesting. Maybe that's an interesting way to scale out the practice. But sounds like Rutgers is also a really good way to do it. So, when you think about law in particular, like what gets you, I don't think I asked you, why did you choose criminal defense?
Okay. So in law school, I had an excellent criminal defense attorney. I'm sorry, excellent professor. Her name was
Okay.
Esther Clark. I went to Widener University, Delaware Law School now. It's in Wilmington, Delaware. And she
Hmm.
was a great professor, but she was also a criminal defense attorney.
Mm.
And she was grandmotherly, but we knew that she was a very good criminal defense lawyer.
Hmm.
And it instilled in me an interest in law school. And then I took more classes in law school, other advanced criminal procedure and
Hmm.
advanced evidence classes and things like that. And then when I went to, become a lawyer and practice law, I happened to have worked for a firm, and the head of the firm was a known criminal defense lawyer.
Mm.
So then it reignited my interest in criminal law, and that's where it went from there.
The rest is history.
The rest is history.
And so tell us about how you got the name, like that, your tagline, you're a fighter, not a handshaker.
So basically, years ago, I once went to a court. I was a young lawyer, and I saw a lawyer begging for a result. Basically, not really fighting, but just begging the court or the prosecutor to give him the result. And I said, no, that's not the way it should be. You should be like a fighter, not a handshaker.
Mm-hmm.
And I notice people out there are more handshakers, and I want to be a fighter. And I want to fight on the law. I want to fight on defenses. I want to fight on the issues. And as time went on, I said, I'm a fighter, not a handshaker.
That's got to be reassuring I'm glad you defined that, because it's probably reassuring for your clients to know that, you're not just going to be making some kind of, quick deal with the DA or whoever you're fighting against, the prosecution. You're going to continue to fight the case, within their best interest, and keep it moving forward without kind of making a deal too quick or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want, when a client is in the, in the audience, I usually sit next to the client in the audience, which is something that I'm proud of. Some people will sit next to the prosecutor. Some people will sit closer to the judge.
Really?
I usually sit next to the client in all my practice of area, in all
so
different
you could
venues.
have an attorney that's sitting like on the other side.
They don't actually sit on the other side, but they'll sit up close in the
Okay.
galley, or they'll
you.
sit somewhere else. I always sit with my client.
Right next to your client.
It's important to me.
Mhm.
And I want the client to say, like, as they're leaving the building, I'm proud that that's my lawyer.
Mhm.
And that's important to me.
Love that.
And I've heard that over the years, someone says, yeah, that's my lawyer. I want them to say that.
Right.
And be proud of my arguments, and be proud of how I present myself, and be proud of how I fight.
I like that.
So that's that's
That's
something
my
important
lawyer.
to me.
Yeah.
It's a good question. Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah, no, of course. And so, is there anything else that you want our audience to know about criminal defense? I think one of the things we spoke about was it Alt A a little bit, that you said that it's coming up a little bit more frequently. Am I mispronouncing it?
I don't know. What do you mean?
Is harassment? Is it like what is it called for the harassment cases that you're seeing more of?
Oh,
What is it called?
Title IX.
Title IX. I think Alt A is a title insurance mortgage term.
It's okay.
Title IX.
So Title IX. So in college campuses, when there's a assault, whether it's a stalking or of a sexual nature, the campus will bring what's called a Title IX action. And I think during the pandemic, this has slowed down because students were not together. They weren't on campuses. They weren't interacting. So I've been recently handling a lot of Title IX cases. Sometimes I'm defending the people that are charged with the Title IX, and sometimes I'm actually handling them as the victims of Title IX.
Okay.
And I'm handling them in front of the schools. And there's a special board that hears the cases. So, and there's other parts of Title IX that come up. Sometimes clients get charged with crimes and criminal cases. Sometimes there's restraining orders that come about. So I've been handling a lot of those.
How do you avoid getting yourself into a Title IX jam up? I mean, is there some advice that you'd have for people out there? I mean, other than like, hey, don't start stalking anyone, but is there like a line in the sand that you would say like, hey, don't cross this?
Well, you have to know in your day-to-day life as a college student. Hopefully your parents have taught you the values that we all have entrusted, that I bring to my children, and explain and follow those examples. But we understand there's drinking involved, and there's drug use involved, and there's discrepancies that come up. But, that's what I would advise, to just behave. And if you see a dangerous situation, try not to engage in it. And, that's what I would say.
Yeah, how about on campus? Well, if you go, freshmen might not know this. Like you go to school, you're dorming there, you have a drink, and then you start walking around campus. Can you get in trouble for Like, are they policing the campus? Do you have clients that sometimes have issues just walking around after having some drinks?
So years ago, college campuses in New Jersey were arresting people left and right for
Yeah, I
marijuana
remember hearing
use.
that. Okay.
A lot of marijuana use. They're
Mhm.
constantly being arrested. But that doesn't happen now because now marijuana use is legal. Except some people, of course, you're still under the age of 21. You're not. It's illegal.
Okay.
So, but I see that as much more decreased. But yes, if you're going to college and you're
Mhm.
drinking on campus and you're openly drinking in public,
Mhm.
you're an underage drinker. You're not supposed to be doing that.
Right.
And you're also not supposed to be drinking in public.
Okay.
But
love that.
those are minor
Note to
things.
self.
Right. Those are minor things. But now it's becoming much more stalkings and sex assaults, and there's much more serious things that go on campuses. And I'm here to help the people that get charged with those things.
Okay. And then, and what I think, talking about marijuana for a second, because, you know, now that it's like it's in every electronic pen, it's in every form you could think of, is the same rules apply, right? Like you can't just go, you know, smoking marijuana inside of a restaurant or smoking it in public. It's the same rules as drinking, correct?
Yeah, you have to follow the smoking rules. I mean,
Okay.
people don't follow them, but you're supposed to follow the rules of where smoking in public is.
Right.
And police are not arresting people as much as they, of course, used to for marijuana usage, for even usage in vehicles, and even marijuana DWIs are decreased. I've seen that, you know, from boots on the ground. But of course, you know, follow all the rules and do all the things you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And be discreet but peaceful.
How about, I'm thinking about that case with the was she like a WNBA player that, did you ever hear about this? She was traveling to Russia?
Yeah, she was arrested in Russia. Well, Russia has very strict, you know, the Soviet Union has very strict
laws against marijuana. Yeah.
Right. And she had a small amount of marijuana. I think it was like concentrate, liquid.
Yeah.
And, you know, they charged her with a crime.
And then she was in jail for
a long time.
For a while, yeah.
Yeah.
So does that apply from state to state? Because marijuana is not federally legal, right?
Well, Pennsylvania, it's not legal.
Okay. So like if you're flying from New York to PA or New Jersey to PA or driving there, like all of a sudden the laws change.
Well, the
right?
federal, in the airports, federal laws control. So whatever the federal law is in this country is what controls in the airports.
Right. So don't travel with your weed pen or whatever on you. As you go through the airport, you get arrested for something like that?
Of course. And if you go to another country, you don't know what the other country's laws are. Obviously, this WNBA player did not know, and she, of course, had to deal with the consequences.
I would think with something like this being so new, people are just kind of getting like blindsided. It's a little bit like confusing, right? Like, oh, I didn't know. I'm in New Jersey. It's legal. I didn't realize the airport's like a federal building. Like now I'm in an issue here. So don't travel with your marijuana.
Ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Yes.
And I will say that over the years, I've handled many cases in New Jersey from Newark Airport. And just so people know,
have, huh?
Yes. And part of Newark Airport, people don't know, but some parts of it are in Elizabeth and some parts of it are in Newark. So if you get arrested in Newark Airport, some of the cases are handled in Elizabeth and some of the cases are handled in Newark.
Wow.
So it could be Essex or it could be Union County. Just something to be aware of.
Comment below if you've been traveling with your weed pen. I'm like really curious to know who knows, you might have left it in a bag by accident. That's crazy.
People do crazy things.
Yeah, they do.
That's why I have.
But you have all the good stories, right. I bet. Anything else you want to leave us with, Eric, as we wrap up here?
I just really enjoyed it. It's nice to be able to, you know, share some information. Hopefully I'm able to help people.
Yes.
And if they ever have an issue and they want to call me, they can contact my law office. And they could, you know, our social media will be at the bottom of the screen, I guess, on this post.
Yes.
So you're welcome to look at it. And I'm always here for people. I'll fight for you throughout the state of New Jersey. And, you know, I'm glad to be on here and share some time.
That's great to see you again. And guys, if you have any questions for Eric, you can leave them in the comment section below. He's happy to jump on and answer, or I'll call him and say, hey, we got a question. But you can certainly reach out to him. As you could tell, such a personable, amazing person, great lawyer, and so excited to have you here today. And thank you guys for joining us for the $1 Billion Banker podcast. We do mortgages here. We talk about everything, but we do mortgages. So if you guys ever have any questions, you let us know. We're here for that as well. Have a great day. Like and subscribe. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.